Okay, everybody, here we go. This is the Camera Assistant Film Crew lecture for Digital Media 255. Got a lot to cover. There's a ton of information that we need to get through. This particular lecture will cover the first AC and the second AC. I know it says DIT, but we're not going to cover that. And we're going to cover both of those positions in a little bit of pre-pro, beginning of the day, at the cart, end of day, camera prep on the set, and then we're not going to really worry about DIT station, but we'll talk a little bit about the wrap out as well, which is at the very end of the shoot when we're all said and done. What do we need to do to kind of prepare for our winter break? So first AC, we're going to go through first AC stuff. The camera prep in pre-production, one thing you should be doing is reading the script. You should go through all the Canvas coursework for the camera assistant, right? There's going to be a module in Canvas that's specifically for the camera crew. You should go through all that information and write down any questions that you have. Make sure that you come prepared so that when we come into our prep day, our training day, that you have some idea about what your expectations are going to be, like what our requirements are for you, and you should have questions for us. Exchange contact information with everybody on the camera crew, because you guys might need to, all of you might need to kind of exchange text messages regarding batteries or who knows what over the course of a semester. So do that. There's going to be some potentially unfamiliar equipment to you, right? You got to make sure that you understand how to work that, know how to make it fire up and get it all going quickly, right? So make sure you know what stuff you're not familiar with and ask questions. And then obviously you're going to attend any production meetings and tech scouts, which for us is basically all in one location, so we don't have a lot of traveling to do, but you need to make sure you're showing up to any meetings that we have. The camera prep, that's going to be one of the things we do on our tech training day, right? So that's something that you're going to be doing in the next week or so. Okay, so we're going to do the camera prep, which is basically building the camera. We'll talk more about that, and then we'll do any tests that we need to do. Specialty equipment that we use that you would have access to would be wireless follow focus, wireless video tap, and then the Steadicam. So we have to learn how to kind of assemble all of that and get all that ready to go so that we're ready to use it when we, when it's time to go, right? And weather, and it says whether they're natural or man-made, right? So most of our shooting is inside. On occasion, we will have some exterior shooting sequences. But one of the things you should be keeping track of and kind of understand, although this is kind of a long shoot that goes through the whole semester, is be aware on a weekly basis what the weather might be, right? So even though we're inside, if it's really, really hot outside, if it's 100 plus outside, it may get very warm inside, right? So dressing appropriately, making sure you have enough water. If we're going to do outside shoots, you want to make sure it's not a rainy day, and if it is going to be a rainy day, that you're prepared with equipment for you to keep you safe and dry, keep the equipment, camera safe and dry. These are all things that you need to be aware of, right? And then obviously always know your call time and you have a copy of the call sheet. The call sheets for this class get emailed to you. I think they come out like Tuesday or Wednesday in the week. You should be looking at those call times, right? Call sheets. You should be looking at the scenes that we're going to be shooting, going back to the script, reading those scenes, and kind of checking for any notes that you might have regarding what we might be doing. Maybe there's something specific you want to know about. You can shoot me an email, and I can answer that question. If you do have questions about general stuff that doesn't have anything to do with like camera specific, right, scheduling or something you need to talk to a director or producer about, you usually want to direct all your questions to the first AD. Make sure that they know what they have the question that you need answered. They'll get you the answer or direct you to somebody that can answer the question. If you have something that's camera specific, then you can just direct that at me. When we get to the prep day, our training day, you're going to do a little bit of a camera prep, right? So a camera prep is going to be twofold for us. Number one, usually it's just about kind of checking all the equipment and making sure it's all up to speed, it's all working, it's all set up. For you, it's going to be a little bit of learning how to build it and learning how to use it as well, right? Which usually isn't the case. You want to make sure that we have a list of the inventory and that you're going to match the inventory to what we actually have on hand, so that if we're missing something, you can let us know. We're going to test that tripod and the tripod head to make sure it's working properly and everything locks okay, and we don't need to swap it out for a different one because something's missing or broken. We're going to set up the camera body, and we're going to set up all the menus and all the LUTs and all the things that need to go into that camera system for us to use it. We're going to make sure we have the most current firmware update, all that good stuff to make sure that the camera is dialed in and ready to go. We're going to put all the batteries on charge and test all those batteries and make sure everything's working. We have like 3 or 4 different batteries that we use, different types of batteries for different things. We're going to test every cable and make sure every cable works and it does what we need it to do. And then we're going to set up our monitors, and EVF stands for electronic viewfinder. And the camera we're using, the viewfinder is built in. We can check it and test it and make sure it works just in case I need to use it. But we also have a couple monitors that we use, and we need to test all of those. I think we have 3 monitors total that we use. So we'll be testing all of that. You want to make sure that we test all the SD cards, right? You want to make sure that all the SD cards are working and none of them have corrupt files. So we'll shoot some footage, send it off to post-production. They'll download it, check it, make sure everything's going okay. We also want to make sure that we're labeling things, whether it be our batteries, our cards are already labeled. We may test the lenses just to show you how that works and how to do it. So we may do a little lens test. When you're testing the lenses, you use a focus chart. We have a focus chart up at Phillips Hall that we can put on a C-stand, and we can use that to test the lenses and make sure that they work at all the focus distances that the lens offers. Inside your lenses, they should already be labeled like this. I'm pretty much 100% sure that when you open the lens case, you're going to see all the lenses there, and they'll have a label on the top cap that tells you which lens that's there. You should have them organized from the top left should be the widest lens we offer, and then move them to the right, and then go down to the next row and move them to the right to our most telephoto lens, just like this is set up. So you'll check that, rearrange that. You're going to go through the lenses and clean them all as well and make sure they're all dust-free, print-free, smudge-free. The outside of the case is already labeled like this as well. What you're looking at here is it tells you what position the lens is inside the case, right? So in the top left of that case, if you open it up, you're going to find the 24mm lens. And then the information below it is giving you 2 things. Number 1, it's telling you what the close focus distance is on that lens. So on the 24mm here, the closest you can focus to anybody is 1 foot away. Sometimes we need that information, and so it gets put on the outside of the case so you have a quick reference as to what the close focus could be. And then also the widest T-stop or the widest f-stop, depending on what types of lenses we're using. There's a difference between a T-stop and an f-stop. This isn't the class where we get into that. You can ask me and I can tell you about that later. It's something we cover in cinematography. But at each lens, it'll tell you what the widest T-stop is, which is sometimes a question that we need answered so we can know how wide open we can open the lens and how much light we can let in, right? So on the top of the case, it'll give you the close focus and the wide open T-stop for every lens. And this is an industry standard. At the beginning of the day. So class starts at 9 o'clock. If you can, the ideal thing to do would be to arrive 10 to 15 minutes early. There's always going to be somebody there at that time. We get there earlier than 9 o'clock for sure. And just get yourself ready to go, right? Find a spot where you're going to put your stuff, start pulling out the camera gear. You start building the camera. We might still be doing COVID testing and check-ins. I'm not 100% sure. Probably will be, so you'll have to do your COVID check-in. And then you get yourself going. And when you come in right when everything starts, it just feels a little hectic. It's always good to come in a little early and start everything off in a nice kind of controlled pace, right? And so one of the first things you do is you get all your gear out, you stage it, and you start to build your camera. You'll try to figure out where we're shooting, right? Which you should know if you looked at the call sheet and you looked at the script. You should know where we're filming. And that'll give you an idea of whether or not you're going to be setting up in a good place or a bad place. You want to speak to the director of photography, which is me, and I'm going to try to give you as much information as I can. Sometimes that information will come out in pieces, right? Like I can give you what ISO, what lens to put on the camera, what color temp we're shooting at, are we using a LUT, any specialty gear we're going to be using, do we need to build the B camera and have Steadicam ready to go, you know, all that good stuff, right? Those are all pieces of information you're looking to get from me as the first AC. And then you want to take care of any paperwork that you need to do. Number 1, that might be just your COVID check-in. There might be other pieces of paperwork that we're asking you to do that you need to take care of, so you'll take care of that, but there isn't a lot of that. And then again, you start to look at the schedule and start to figure out what it is we're going to shoot for the day. Right? As you get into this, hopefully the idea is that you kind of pick up on the tendencies of me and the tendencies of the directors and how they like to shoot and what they like to shoot and when they like to shoot it. And that'll help you kind of make choices early in the day to get yourself ready to go, right? Our camera package isn't huge, except we do run the 2 cameras sometimes, which means you'll have some extra gear to travel with. But you want to look at that schedule and kind of understand what it is we're trying to accomplish for the day, okay? You'll check in with the first AD to kind of figure out where the staging is going to be, right? So figure out where the best place. You want to get the camera gear and the camera cart as close to set as you can get it without it being in the way. And then when you get to set, there's some pieces that you get even closer to you that you try to be as close as you can. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So now we're on the set. The key thing is you want to key in on the DP's voice. So the DP here is me. And you want to be, if I'm saying something, you want to be hearing it, right? Like that's your job. Your job is to hear what I'm talking about. Okay. Number one, I'm not sure if I say this much in here. I can't remember if I mentioned it, but you're never supposed to leave the camera. The camera should never be left unoccupied. There should be somebody with it all the time. And typically 99% of the time, that's the first AC. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're always by the camera. And if you do need to walk away for some reason, use the restroom or something, make sure somebody's standing there. Usually it's one of the other camera assistants, right? Or if I'm around and I'm standing there, ask me and I'll let you know whether I need to walk away or not, right? You got to stay focused, key in on my voice. You always want to be working quietly and with a purpose, right? I shouldn't feel like my camera crew is like meandering and kind of, just relaxing through the day. It's work and we're trying to get stuff done. I haven't had the issue with my first ACs. It's been an issue with my second and my video village guy. So make sure you're working with a purpose and you're always kind of staying on task. The lenses and AKS. So AKS stands for accessories. So your lenses and any AKS accessories, any AKS that you want close by, it should be over your right shoulder if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, it could be over your left shoulder. But it should all be over your right-hand shoulder, meaning that you should be able to, wrong side, I'm left-handed. Look over your right shoulder, and there should be the lens case and the AKS, and that's where the second AC should place it. So you try to get it right over your right-hand shoulder, as close to you as you can. So if we need to make a lens change, or we need to do some kind of change to the camera, change a battery, change any accessory on the camera, all that stuff should be extremely close. That second AC should not have to go to the cart all the way to go find it. They should know exactly where it's at and be able to grab it in just a second or two. When we exchange SD cards with the first AD, that's your job, right? So when our card's getting full, it's staying up on the display. We don't ever want to run a shot and then have the card go dead, like because it ran out of space. So we try to change those, right? That happens between the first AD and the first AC on our crew, right? Professionally, we're going to have some kind of a digital loader or DIT that would kind of handle that. But on this set, it goes straight from the first AC to the first AD, and those are the only two people that exchange SD cards. And then the first AD is going to take those cards to post, okay? So our post-production is on set with us, so we have something a little bit different than a professional shoot might have normally. And the big thing is we never want to be waiting on camera, right? We can't run a shot until the camera is ready to go. So you got to make sure that we're ready to go. On the set still, so some of the major responsibilities for the first AC would be pulling focus, right? That's like your main function. Your job is to keep every single shot we shoot in focus all the time. So if the camera's moving, excuse me. If the camera's moving, then focus is going to change. If the actor is moving, focus is going to change. If the camera and the actor are moving, focus is going to change a lot. It's your job to make sure that you know how far we are away from the actor all the time and keep the shot in focus. Okay, so you can see on the picture right there, we have a focus puller who's measuring the distance from the sensor on the camera. That's not a sensor, that's a film playing, that's a film camera. But you'll be doing it from the sensor to the actor. So you use a tape measure to kind of figure out what your distances are. And then also our monitors will have what's called peaking, which is a focus assist setting, so that'll help you tell you whether you're sharp or not. You're the person who sets the T-stop on the lenses, so you'll get that information from me, and you would set that T-stop. You would also set the ISO, which really that doesn't happen very often. Sometimes we set it for the day and it stays at the same ISO. It may switch from one scene to the next as well. There's a chance we could change ISO. And any other menu settings that need to get adjusted, you would be the person who does that. Dial information. So you're going to be giving pertinent information to the second AC. So if the second AC needs the focus distance, you'll let them know that number. If they need to know how much time's left on the card, you'll tell them that number. If they need to know camera height or whatever information they might need to put into their logbooks, you're usually somebody that would relay that information to them. One of your jobs too is to eliminate lens flares. So you should always be aware of looking at the front of the camera where the lens is and seeing if there's flares, if there's light from the set hitting our lens. And then it's your job with the key grip to eliminate those flares and make sure our lens is not getting hit with light. We should shoot a color chart anytime we go into a new scene. I have a couple different color charts. I have a full size, like 8.5 by 11 color chart, which is helpful. And then I also have a passport size if we're in close-ups and maybe I ask you to do a close-up color chart. But we need to shoot those before we shoot scenes. Inform the first AD when the camera is ready. So anytime we're ready to go and you know we're ready to fly, you need to let the first AD know the camera is ready so they're not accidentally waiting for us because they didn't know we were ready. So you need to make sure that that's happening. You also want to watch all the blocking rehearsals and anything that's going on with actors, because again, that's how you're going to determine what your focus is going to be, right? So they're going to block the actors, and then our second AC is going to give marks, and we're going to have marks. Sometimes the actors will leave, and you can use those marks to go get your focus distances, and then you got to keep track of those focus distances, whether you're writing them on your hand, whether you're writing them in a notebook, but ultimately you got to have them memorized, and you got to have a way to mark it up so that you can pull those distances, which we'll show you how to do on the camera. The camera cart. So we don't have a mag liner. We have like a Rubbermaid cart, which works great. I've worked with both on film sets before. It's your system. However you want it organized, that's the way it should be organized. But this cart should be clean and organized. Usually it's the responsibility of the second to keep it clean and organized. But where things go and how they get placed, that's totally up to you. You need to have things that needs to be a kind of a process, right? Like I said, anything you need ASAP, lenses and any AKS like batteries and things like that should be right over your right shoulder. Things that you need on hand but don't need them right away, put those on the cart. And then other things that you very rarely use, or cases that we don't need, or things that just make things like overly crowded, we can leave that in the camera room or wherever we're staging our gear for that particular day. But you want to keep it clean, and you want no food or drink ever on that cart. There is 2 cup holders for they'll fit like a water bottle like this kind of thing. If it's a water bottle like that, sure, they can go in the cup holder, but no food on the cart. This is a picture of a mag liner that's kind of set up, or 2 mag liners that are all set up and dialed in. So this is kind of how neat and tidy you want to have all your stuff. At the end of the day, pack away your camera stuff completely. So the camera needs to get packed away completely and correctly. All the wires and cables need to be put exactly in the little bags that they go into. All the camera needs to be disassembled, and all the pieces of the camera need to be put away properly. It should be taken care of perfectly. Okay, the camera needs to be packed away perfectly. The cart needs to be organized. All our gear needs to be packed away neatly in the room that we keep all our equipment in. And then we need to know where the batteries are going. Who's taking what batteries and charging what batteries. And they need the charger and the batteries, and they take them with them, and then they bring them back the next week. That's how it works, okay? No one leaves until everything is done. So you don't just be like, hey, I'm out, I'm bouncing. In fact, no one's going to leave until the entire crew is done. Okay, so it's not just your department. No one leaves until everybody's finished and ready to walk out. Okay. The wrap out. This is pretty straightforward. This doesn't happen until the very end of the show when we're done, right? The camera body and all the accessories will be cleaned. All the lenses get cleaned, all the cables get cleaned and wiped down. We wipe down all the cases and everything. We take off labels that we don't need anymore, and we just clean everything. And then we get a list of anything that we don't know where it's at. We've either lost it or it's been broken or damaged. We get a list of that, and that's what is That's the wrap out, right? So those are the things that you need to do at the very end. We don't have to take care of that until we get to the end, but it's just something to kind of be aware of. The last day, we do have some work to do. The main things that you need to do is, number one, you're never leaving camera. Number two, you're in charge of focus. And you're in charge of making any adjustments to the camera that I give you, right? Moving the camera around, part of your responsibility with the second AC. And that you just never leave it alone, and that you're always focused and dialed in, right? Always focused and dialed in and paying attention to what's going on, right? This is a cool position because it keeps you engaged all the time, the whole day. So the day goes fast, but it can be kind of high stress, high pressure. So you have to learn to deal with that high stress, high pressure, stay calm, even keeled, and just get the work done, right? So we'll go over all these things in our training day. But if you've got any questions, please write them down, because that's the best way for us to kind of, address that. Talk soon.